The fear, I don't think, is whether AI will take away the job. I think the reality is that. So I am the finance expert. I am the expert on numbers. What is my identity with AI? The biggest one there is judgment. I am calling it enterprise judgment. There are two parts to it again. What does it mean to what can we do next month, next quarter, next year? I think moving from the past to predictability for the future.
Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Emagia Finance Transformation Podcast. I am your host Sunil Pupala, Senior Director of Sales at Emagia. So we will kickstart this session introducing Rohit Chowdhry, the author of the Future Ready GCC, Leader from Excellence to Evolution. So in this topic, we will cover various points related to GCC and also the transformation happening in GCC. And Rohit will help us to unpack what it means for the next generation of global delivery. I'm welcoming Rohit to the session, and a warm welcome to this session. And we would like to hear more insights from you, Rohit.
Thanks a lot, Sunil, for inviting me here. I think the context is clear, especially for the finance area. We are moving from the typical cost arbitrage to value arbitrage. And especially a lot of stuff in the finance area is going through a transformation with the AI. So I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Absolutely. That's a great start, Rohit. Straight away, I want to deep dive into your new book, The Future Ready GCC Leader. On your platform, you feature a powerful note, right? In terms of many GCCs are becoming technologically future ready faster than they're becoming leadership ready. So what was the exact aha moment that you had while authoring this? And based on your decades of running large-scale GCCs and also running these operations, that has put you into asking these questions to the GCC leaders.
I will not exactly describe that as a aha moment. But what I will say is from all my coaching conversations and the workshops I do on leadership development, these themes have emerged. And the Future Ready GCC Leader is all about addressing the gap of where the leaders have come from so far in the last couple of decades to this interesting stage of the AI era, to where are you now going and what brought you here. Is that good enough to take you in the future journey? So this book is actually addressing that gap, because when you look at GCC leaders, now they want to be on the table, on the decision-making table or the strategic table. And some of them are also now being invited to be on that table. But the discussion that they are pushing is still about the past. How can the GCC leaders start discussing about what is their opinion, view, point of view about the future? Is, I think, the agenda. And that gap is what this book is addressing.
Interesting, Rohit. So in your new book, you describe those 5 distinct leadership qualities and identities that show up inside the GCCs. So what are they, and which of them would you see as the most often in GCC finance environments?
Okay, so let me first talk about the 5 identities, and then I'll address the finance-related topic additionally. So these 5 identities are coming from the context of what I just mentioned about what brought the leaders here. So I'll just tell you what are the 5, and then we'll go into those 2 interesting ones for finance. So one is the expert leader, people who have the domain knowledge and who have all the functional experience, and they have lived all their life building that functional domain area. So they have the expert, they are the experts, whether it is finance, HR, marketing, technology, various areas. The second is people who are efficiency leaders. So those who are pushing efficiency agenda, they have the processes, they can make sure that more can be done with less or more can be done with the same. That sort of mindset and leadership strengths they have demonstrated. Then there are people who are the delivery experts. So these are people who just get stuff done. So if you tell them we need to do this, they know exactly how to get it done. So you don't have to worry. You just tell them and they get it done. So those are the people who have actually made things happen in these last couple of decades as far as GCCs is concerned. Then the fourth category is what I describe as a safe leader. Now, these are leaders who have understood the politics of the organization. They can navigate through the organizations without causing any collateral damage. So attrition is low, relationships are very good, onshore relationships are great. They know exactly how to do, what to do, and get the stuff done very smoothly.
Peacetime leaders.
Yeah, they get the stuff done. They know how to do it. And then the fifth category is what I'm calling as the emerging strategic leaders. Now, this is the real direction where everyone should be. But in the legacy, they have had these remaining four type of leadership identities. And the emerging ones also at times may fall back on their other leadership identities, the older ones. So that's about the 5 identities. The interesting concept or the question you asked about finance is which ones resonate more with the finance people? I would say 2. One is the expert leader for obvious reasons. And the second is safe leader. Expert leader because they are finance people, they are extremely good with numbers, they know their numbers very well. And they have been doing that for several years or probably a couple of decades. So the expert level is extremely high in their mindset and their leadership style or the leadership identity. Because when they sit in a room, they are seen as the finance expert, the numbers person. That person knows where is the money coming from, where is it going, how much is there, budgets are there, not there, etc. The second identity is the safe leader. Now the finance person, and I'm generalizing a bit, but typically finance person is coming from a context of compliance, managing risks, not taking too many creative ideas and solutions to do certain things, following the norms, reasonably well controlled, guardrails are in place. So their mindset is roughly close to the safe leader, which means navigate within the paths which have been defined. Don't go too much outside the paths. And the challenge on both these with the AI era today is that the expert leader is being challenged by AI because AI, you have expertise in almost everything.
Right.
So if you are a finance expert, AI is also equally good on numbers and rules and anything which is predictable, transactional processing, anywhere where there are predictable rules, AI is extremely good. So the expert leader concept is being challenged. And the second area which is being challenged is the safe leader.
Right.
Because the need of the hour is for the finance people to start suggesting, recommending things that the GCC leaders or the leadership teams within the companies can do differently, understanding the finance perspective. And so not just reporting what happened in the past, but actually looking at the future. So these are the 2 leadership identities, I think, which I would resonate more with the finance professionals or the leaders. And those are getting challenged by the AI era today.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great insight, Rohit, because we see a lot of finance guardrails which are there. I think you put the right word there. However, AI, how it is navigating through without breaking those guardrails.
Yeah.
I think that is important. I think great analysis and insights on that. I love that concept because it transitions perfectly into the your recent insight titled "The seat at the table is not the destination."
Yeah.
Right. So you noted that while many GCC leaders work hard to get invited into global strategic rooms, they often realize that they are still speaking the language of the operational updates rather than strategic influence. Right. So how does a GCC leader unlearn those old reporting updates, then move to the strategic thinking zone?
I think that's a very important dimension for GCC leaders or any leader to develop today. And I'm calling it directional influence. And I'll just split the phrase into 2. Directional from a perspective of, can the leader build a point of view? I think what I've seen in all my career and the interactions with leaders is What differentiates a leader is, does that person have a long-term view or a vision and a point of view of where does he or she want their team, organization, or that group to go, and what is their vision and point of view. So that is the direction part of it, having your own point of view. The other part is the influence,
Right.
where can you use that point of view to influence and inspire actually people, whether it is your team members at the closest level, or it is your leaders, or it is your customers, or any other stakeholder involved in the process. So these two elements, having a point of view and ability to inspire, the two, when you put together, I'm calling it directional influence. I think very important for not just finance leaders, any leader, to be able to have their own point of view of what does this mean, and how do you improve the ability to communicate and influence stakeholders. Because it is more about now coming out of the reporting phase and saying, what does this data mean, or what does this report interpret, what do I interpret from my experience, and what does it mean to you as a leader, how can you use it for the organizational growth, or to provide better services to a customer, or to be able to manage the funds available, etc., better. So I think the direction is to be able to use your point of view, your vision, and influence the various stakeholders involved. So I would say that is the combination of directional influence.
So Rohit, we spoke about the structural shift of the GCCs. So I want to ask you about the human reality behind this shift. In terms of like, what is your honest read on the fear in the room? We always think about AI will capture jobs, or AI will overtake humans. When you coach the GCC finance leaders, right, what are they actually anxious about? And also when it comes to AI, and also is that in the right direction, or do you think that is real?
Yeah, I think there are 2 or 3 parts to that question. The first one, let's look at the reality. One is AI is automating almost every area which is predictable, mechanical in nature, transactional in nature. Rules are set. And finance is an area which is very much defined by a set of rules. And hence, AI is being able to be implemented in finance to a very large extent successful, because finance is a good candidate for AI with lot of so many predictable procedures and functions. So the reality is AI is going to impact how finance works. Companies have evolved. They are leveraging AI to a large extent today, and that journey will continue. Some are in part of the journey. They are initially in the initial stage, or some have gone into the advanced stage. For example, your Emagia solutions and gone to the higher level of usage of AI. That's one part. That's the reality, that AI is going to impact the way work is going to be done.
Right.
Efficiency will improve. Cost is likely to come down because you can scale the solutions, etc. Now, what is the challenge that the finance leader is facing? What is the fear? I think that was the question you asked. The fear, I don't think, is whether AI will take away the job. I think the reality is that AI will do some of the mundane transactional stuff. So some jobs will definitely have to be modified. You can't continue to have things which are transactional being done manually, because they can be easily converted to AI based solutions. So the real fear, I think, the finance leader is facing, and it comes from that expert leadership identity. So I am the finance expert. I am the expert on numbers. What is my identity with AI?
Yeah.
It is changing, right? The key element of my identity, which is my expert capability on finance and accounts and numbers, AI can supplement or complement in some phases. So what is my identity? What should I be known for? I think that is the real fear. And I think coming to the third part, how can they actually address it, is to look at what elements of their role as a leader are beyond the elements which can be taken up by AI.
Right.
And the biggest one there is judgment. And I'm calling it enterprise judgment. There are 2 parts to it. Again, coming out of the silo of a functional expert mindset to a wider enterprise level thinking. So that is the enterprise part of it. So for a finance leader, will continue to be a finance person, but a lot of data will be managed by AI. So as a leader, you are not reporting and using the data, you are coming out with insights. What does the data mean to business? And that is where the second part of enterprise judgment, thinking beyond functional area and thinking about what is your point of view and what is the judgment call. How can you help a leader of that company or organization take a better decision based on the insights that you can provide from a finance perspective? I think that is the journey that leaders need to go through.
All right. I think you hit right on the point with the fear, Rohit. And now you have boldly stated that the efficiency arguments for GCC is over. I mean, we started in 1990s that on the labor arbitrage, and then moving all operations to offshore, particularly which are transactional. Then we got into the heavy finance activities, then spread into other activities as well. Now, it's not about doing the same thing for less cost or so. Now, it's all about getting that efficiency in. So, if cost cutting and simple efficiency are no longer the differentiator, the primary differentiators, so what is a new North Star for global GCCs?
No, so I think that's a great point. And that is something that I have been propagating for the last several months now. And there have been a few articles now recently, last few weeks, which are almost agreeing to the concept with data. The hypothesis is that if you are implementing or using AI, you will get at some point higher efficiency and higher the cost arbitrage. Now, if that was the objective, why should a company which is somewhere onshore start a GCC? They can implement AI solutions onshore and get the cost and efficiency benefit. So the value proposition of a GCC cannot be cost and efficiency.
Right.
Nobody should take the pain of opening a GCC to get those two benefits when they can be accomplished onshore itself. Now, time is a challenge, whether it is going to happen today, next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, but it will happen because cost factors, ROI, those are some of the parameters which we are still delving into with AI solutions. The challenge is if cost and efficiency are not your objectives anymore, what is the North Star you're saying?
Correct.
And I would use the phrase P2P. And I would say, how can you move from past reporting type of position to a predictability mindset?
Absolutely.
And I think that is where the finance leader can bring in value. Change, modify the way finance outcomes are more about reporting the past and saying what did we do last week, last month, last quarter, last year, versus what does it mean to what can we do next month, next quarter, next year. I think moving from the past to predictability for the future with financial insights, because finance people are extremely data driven and they don't talk conceptually. They are using data to come up with those insights. So how can they continue to be objective, use that data and come up with insights which are helping decision makers to look at the future instead of reporting what has happened in the past? So the past data is already going to be there based on AI, for example. But can you bring in the finance leadership element there to predict the future leverage of that data? I think that's where finance leaders can move.
Absolutely. I love the word, your definition of P2P, past to predictability.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rohit.
Welcome.
Yeah. Now, looking at the autonomous finance and the solutions that provide those autonomous finance. So, when you look at the modern AI ecosystems like Emagia, right, which leverages highly on the AI and the agentic AI solutions in its products in terms of like be it credit risk, be it collections, or be it any of these order to cash solutions. So, how do you see this altering the strategic change for the modern GCCs?
I think for when you look at it from a CFO's lens,
Yeah.
I think the biggest benefit, the solutions that you just spoke about that Emagia provides to the finance fraternity the biggest benefit it creates is the bandwidth or the mind share.
Yeah.
How much of time mentally is the CFO spending on a lot of things which are slightly mechanical in nature? I think that part of the bandwidth is now being addressed by AI based solutions that you are providing. That basically frees up some amount of time for the CFO to think more strategically, think forward, like we discussed, and not constantly thinking about what have we done in the past. So I think and it is about how does the CFO or the finance leader use that additional opportunity of time more constructively in their roles. And I think the key three areas that they can use it. One is to interpret. So the interpret is all about your reporting information. So all the spreadsheets and all the different statements are available financially. What is your point of view? What are your 2 cents on that data or insight? What do you suggest? Because that is most valuable from a decision making standpoint. For the CEO, for example, they are looking at the CFO to come up with what is their recommendation based on the data, because everybody can look at the data, and it is actually the differentiator is how do you interpret the data and how do you make it useful for a decision maker. So I think the first benefit is spend more time on interpretation and coming up with recommendations based on your own experiences. The second is using that time to build relationships. The need of the hour is to come out of the finance room and look at the various stakeholders involved with the organization. And I think for the CFOs to be out there, interact, connect with various stakeholders, whether it is the investor, whether it is the financing organizations, customers, being able to listen to them and being able to understand the business better. I think so that connection, I would say the relationship building, the solutions are giving them more time to spend time on relationship building. And the third is ability to influence and communicate better. So using all the information that you have from the various systems that you're providing the information to, how do I use that to be able to create better outcomes, better interpretations, better point of views, insights for the various stakeholders involved, not just the decision makers, but even the investor or the shareholder. How do they understand what is happening with the company? Where are we financially? How strong? How are we going? Using the financial data to make those interpretations. So I think those are the three I would say that CFOs get more time to focus on because of your solutions. Some of the mundane stuff gets done.
All right. Great insights, Rohit. So, in your book signature Edge program, you talked about two pillars that stand out to me: enterprise judgment and experimentation for value. In a historically conservative, compliance heavy field like global corporate finance, right? How does having an advanced AI platform actually create safety net needed for teams to experiment and drive new business outcomes?
Yeah, so let me quickly recap on the four leadership dimensions that I'm calling as EDGE. That's the acronym. So the first one is enterprise judgment. The second is directional influence. The third is growth of others. And the fourth is experimentation for value. So enterprise judgment, like you just called out, is all about coming out of the functional silo. So I'm not just saying it is for finance people. It could be for anybody who's worked for a couple of decades in various functions. How do you come out of that functional silo and look at things more at an enterprise level? And we spoke about the judgment element already. So the first one is enterprise judgment. The second is directional influence, which we also spoke about. How do you create a point of view and how do you influence the various stakeholders? The third is growth of others, which is very important from a leadership standpoint about building capability. I think a lot of GCCs, I'm seeing that the managers, leaders, management groups are focusing on performance management and assuming and thinking that they are investing in people by giving feedback on performance. But I think capability building is different from performance management. So can you focus as part of the growth of others on capability the building and not necessarily from the job that they are doing right now? where is the industry heading in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Accordingly, helping people build that capability to become future ready. I think that is the sort of investment a leader needs to make in their people for helping them be prepared for the future. And the fourth one is experimentation for growth. I think that is the one which has a conflict with the leadership identity of a typical finance person who is a safe leader,
Right.
who is following rules, who wants to do things which are predictable. But the challenge or the ask of the AI era is, can you experiment?
Yeah.
And that is where I think GCC finance leaders will have to come out of their comfort zone to be more open to experimentation, trying out new ideas, coming up with views which have been different from the past. So if everybody is doing something, it doesn't mean you just follow the same path. What is your gut feel telling you, based on data, obviously? And what is your recommendation based on that, which can be completely different? And that is the environment where you propagate creativity and innovation. And that's the phase which is experimentation for growth. And helping leaders be able to think creatively. Because if you look at a leadership role, if you look at the right side of the brain and left side of the brain, you will notice that the logic side of the brain is largely being taken up by the AI solutions that you're providing today. So what is left for the leader is really to be more creative, which is the right side of the brain. So can you use data which is coming out from your solutions or AI solutions to interpret it from a human standpoint, from an ethics standpoint, from an empathy standpoint, from a judgment standpoint, and come up with your view? I think that is the direction for leaders in finance, especially, to move from their typical guardian type of a mindset to an experimentation sort of a mindset.
It completely turns the GCC from an offshore execution vendor to a peer-level strategic hub. It's an incredibly exciting evolution, right? So, Rohit, with the blistering pace of the generative AI, and of course the agentic workflows that are there, and the cognitive automation we are experimenting right now, what does the GCC finance look like as we move towards 2030? What is the structure of the Future Ready Center in a few years down the line?
Thanks for asking. I will summarize it in one line first and then get into a few details. I think in summary, I would say a lot of transaction processing is happening.
Yeah.
So by 2030, which is down the line, about 4 years from now, I think the transition will be from a typical transaction processing scenario to a thinking scenario.
Yeah.
The assumption is that AI will help you with a lot of the transactional stuff. So that frees up the mind space for the leaders to really think about what to do as initiatives or activities for the organization to move forward. And so in that context, I'm saying from a typical transaction processing scenario to a thinking mindset. I think that would be my summary for the next 4 years. That's the transition. And obviously, the sort of solutions Emagia is providing to the finance area, it is going to help organizations to move from that typical current scenario for transaction process to be able to get more time to think strategically and contribute to the decision-making process in a more strategic fashion using solid data. Because this is not based on your gut feel or not just an emotional outburst. It is based on solid data that finance group is sitting on, and that is available here. And I would say that is the thing. The obvious changes are that the organizations are moving from a typical pyramid sort of a structure to, I think, what can be described as a diamond-shaped structure, where you don't have a lot of people doing transactional work. That is going to get replaced with
Correct.
lesser people doing that sort of work, and it will be replaced with agents or agentic AI or some of the other AI solutions which can help do all that manual high volume transactional stuff. So I think bottom of that pyramid is going to start getting converted into a diamond, and I think the structure will be stronger, bigger in the middle layer, where you will have more tenured, experienced people who bring the functional experience, and they are actually helping the finance function grow in the right direction. And then you have the a slightly pyramid shape at the top, where you have the leaders then thinking more directionally ahead rather than reflecting on the data and reporting it out. Their time is spent more in future. So in summary, I would say, how do you use that time to move in the next 4 years, 2030, from a typical transaction mindset to a thinking mindset? I think that will be the transition.
So yeah, fascinating. To wrap things up, Rohit, if our listeners take away just one core actionable piece of advice from the future-ready GCC leader to future-proof both their careers and their global business operations, what would that golden rule be?
Reasonably difficult to summarize in one sentence, but I would say reflect on your past.
Yeah.
So there is an assessment available on my website which allows leaders to look at what brought them here and what areas to focus to move forward. So reflect on the past, because that is the solid foundation. There's nothing wrong or right in that. It is understanding and learning about your own leadership style or identity and saying what brought you here. So reflecting on the past is one action. Looking at what are the dimensions required for the coming time and focusing on the ones where you need to build, like the ones we have already spoken about for finance. Maybe the areas which are safe leader will translate into how do I become a more experimentation for a growth sort of a person, or improve the directional influence, or looking at the growth of people, or looking at the enterprise judgment. So which areas will you want to focus on? So reflect on the past, look at which areas you want to focus on. The key is what brought you here is not necessarily going to take you further.
Right.
And that is the real gap in the current scenario. AI has changed a lot of stuff on how GCCs are operating, how people are operating, how leaders are operating. So as a GCC leader or a finance leader, I think the key is to understand what brought you here is the foundation. But there's a change of gears required at this stage to move to the next stage. And I think that transformation is what I would summarize as the need of the hour.
Right. Thank you so much, Rohit. Commit to evolution, not just excellence. So what a perfect note to end on. So Rohit, thank you so much for sharing your incredible practitioner frameworks and your time with us today.
Thanks.
And for our audience, make sure to pick up his new book, The Future Ready GCC Leader, and then you can just also watch more details on emagia.com. So Rohit.
Thank you very much, Sunil. So I would like to draw your attention to the subtitle, which is From Excellence to Evolution.
Right.
All of you are already excelling.
Right.
How do you now evolve from here? I think that is the question. Thanks
Absolutely.
a lot for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, audience. And till we get to the next podcast, signing off. Thank you.